Hello there YouTubers, and welcome to another DrCassette video. Today we will be taking a closer look at the Sony model DCR-VX1000. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the features and functions of this camcorder. Looking at the side, you can already see it has 3 CCDs for superior color reproduction, has 20 times digital zoom and 10 times optical zoom. This is your focus adjustment ring. This is where you select the focus. You can either have it on auto or manual. Underneath of that we have the push auto button. If you're in manual focus mode and you push that, the camera just quickly adjusts itself automatically. This is your ND filter, your neutral density filter. The camera is going to tell you when you have to turn it on and when you have to turn it off. However, you can also use it for creating interesting pictures. For example, if you zoom in the camera a little bit and turn on the ND filter and then shoot a object close up, you can get the same effect with the sharpness. You can get the same effect as you would get with a DSLR in film mode or video mode. This is your exposure button, either auto or manual, and this is the exposure adjustment, up or down. This is, of course, the cassette compartment with the eject button. Now, up on top of the camera, you can see the second record button up there. And this is your edit search for reviewing the footage that you've just recorded. However, I would not recommend overusing the edit search because it does put a lot of wear and tear onto the mechanism. And down there, a little bit hidden, is the button that activates the fader and overlap effects. Most of the controls of the camcorder are on the back. Up here is the power switch. I currently have it set to camera mode. This is the auto or manual selector. You can either have everything in auto, then it's on auto lock. If you push it down one step, you're going into manual mode, and you can go ahead and adjust your shutter speed or your white balance or your exposure manually. If you want to hold those adjustments, press it down another step and you can't use the manual functions anymore. But they are still set, so you don't accidentally de-adjust anything. Now if you go back to auto lock, the camera saves your manual settings, so if you go back to the manual mode, they're right back. This is a selector wheel, which basically selects manual functions and turns things up or down. Right here is the display on the back of the camera. I currently don't have a cassette in there, so usually it would show the cassette time right there. This is, of course, the battery indicator. Up there it says that there is no cassette inside. It shows various different things right there. Currently it's showing the time. However, for example, if I go and hit the Program AE button and put it to manual mode as well, that changes, as you can see. Right here, it would usually show you the record level. However, that does not work when there is no cassette inside. Up there, it also has a little peak LED that lights up red. Now, underneath of that, we have our adjustments for the Program AE, for the shutter speed, white balance, and the record level. And those are all controlled with that control wheel on the side. Down there we have, of course, zero set memory and the self timer. This is for setting the white balance. This is the DV output. This is the European version, so there is only an output. I think the American versions also has a DV input. And this opens up the battery compartment. And there are some more things going on in there. So you can see this is where the battery goes. This is for your menu. And on the back of the door, not sure how close I can get to that, we have the selector that turns the steady shot on and off, and we have the digital mode. You can either have it set to zoom, digital zoom, and 16:9 wide, or you can set it to overlap. So basically, when you want to do an overlap effect, you cannot use the digital zoom and you cannot use the 16:9 widescreen mode. By the way, the 16:9 widescreen mode, as far as I know, is only available on the Japanese and European models. And right here is where the backup battery goes. And right here, of course, we have the start-stop switch, record button. And this is the lever that you can pull down to lock the camera, then turns off into standby mode, then camera mode, and down there is photo mode. On this side of the camera, you have the zoom control and the photo button. The photo button has two steps. You push it down a little bit, you hear a beep tone, and the camera captures a frame. You push it down all the way to record that frame onto the tape. Except for the DV output, all the inputs and outputs are on this side of the camcorder. Behind this little door, we have the headphone output and the LANC remote control interface. Up here, we have the microphone jack. Right there, it is a plug-in power microphone jack. And right here, we have the AV outputs for audio, left and right, video, composite video, super video. Right there is the little DC output for the RF modulator unit. And this is the DC input from the charger. You can charge the batteries in the camcorder as well. This is the front of the camcorder. Right here we have the very high quality hi-fi stereo microphones. Those are insulated from the body of the camcorder. As you can see, you can move them. And that's why you only want to store this camcorder in a solid camera case or in some kind of a box. Because if you have constantly pressure coming down onto the microphone, that starts hanging down after a while. This is the record LED and the sensor for the remote control. There is the lens cap. Of course, you can take the lens hood off. Just unscrew it right there and screw that off. As you can see, I have this UV light filter screwed on there that protects my lens, and it also filters out unwanted UV light. The diameter of the lens thread is 52 millimeters. So that's something you have to know when you want to put on an add-on lens or a filter. On top of the camcorder, we have the standard accessory shoe, secondary pickup for the remote control, secondary record indicator light, and a button marked CP check. There is one point in the menu marked custom picture, and you can do some certain adjustments to the picture in that part of the menu. And to check those settings without having to go into the menu, you just hit CP check and they pop up in the viewfinder. On top of the cassette door, you have all the controls for the playback mode. They light up, as you can see. Have stop, rewind, play, fast forward, pause, slow, and the frame advance modes. Now, a lot of people say that you should use a separate capture cam for capturing videos into the computer. Now, I don't have a capture cam, and I don't think it's 100% necessary. What you should avoid to do is to use the fancy features and functions, such as frame advance and slow playback or reverse playback or review. That kind of stuff is what wears out the mechanism, and you don't want to do that. One interesting function that Sony doesn't tell you about in the manual is this camera can generate color bars. To do that, you put the camera into lock, then you press the secondary record button and the photo button at the same time, and then you turn it back on. Now, you can use these color bars, for example, as a divider on your tape. So if you want to divide one section of the tape from another section, you can do that with the color bars. I think that's really, really handy. This is the remote control that comes with the VX1000, and I really think that these things are very, very handy to have. Now let's take a look at the features and functions on this thing. Now up here we have basically an on and off switch. If you put it to hold, the remote is turned off. Put it to VTR4 and it functions. We have a record button, zoom controls. Down here are all of our controls for the playback mode. This also controls, for example, reverse playback and double speed playback, which you all can't do on the camera itself. Up here we have a button for the display. If you have the VX1000 hooked up to an external display, to a television or a monitor or whatever, the display button turns on the display on your camcorder screen so that you can see what you're doing also on the external screen. This is for the data code. This is once again zero set memory, doubles the control on the camera. Up here we have the photo button that records a photo, and there is a print button, and I guess that is intended to be used with a Sony photo printer that was available back in the 90s. Now, if you're doing research about this camcorder, you'll soon find out that it has problems with cables. Now, I wanted to explain that to you, just very quickly. Now, the oldest models of this camcorder are from 1995, and since this was a rather expensive camcorder, these models commonly have had a lot of use through their life. So there are certain cables in this camcorder that can break over time. Now, it's not a bad construction, but it is somewhat unintelligent. At least some of the problems this camcorder has are, well, actually unnecessary. But however, the most common problem is the cable that connects the display of the viewfinder to the camcorder electronics breaks. Now, of course, you can prevent that. If you're constantly doing this, you'll soon end up with a broken cable inside of there. If you are only moving the viewfinder around when it's absolutely necessary, the cable is going to last quite a bit longer. The next thing that can happen is the cable that connects the playback controls on top of the cassette compartment breaks. If that happens, you'll end up with either the buttons not functioning at all, or you'll end up with the buttons functioning whenever you don't want them to function. So you put it into the playback mode and it just goes into rewind, for example, just randomly. Of course, the eject mechanism is rather complicated. You can see that the part that contains the playback controls is moved around quite a bit, and so is the cable that connects this part to the camera itself. So only eject the tape when it's absolutely necessary. If you do it too often, the controls are going to break. Now that is not too bad because you still have the remote control that you can use. However, it is very, very complicated to repair this cable inside of there, because you basically need to replace the whole button assembly, and it's also very hard to find a replacement part for that. Now, the next thing that can happen, and it seems to be the most uncommon problem, is there is this door where the battery is going in. Of course, since this door also contains the display, there must be a cable connecting this door to the camera, and of course that can break as well. But as a matter of fact, I have not read about any problems regarding that cable, so it seems to be rather safe. Now, there is one thing regarding the batteries that I wanted to tell you. This camera does not discharge the batteries completely. When it says the batteries are empty and shuts itself off, there is still quite a bit of a charge left in the batteries. Now, these are the modern type lithium-ion batteries. However, also these modern batteries do have a slight memory effect. So if you put the batteries onto the charger the way they come out of the camera, you'll end up with a slowly decreasing capacity. And that's actually what happened with this battery. It'll barely even hold a charge anymore. So what I'm doing is I have this video light, and this takes the batteries this camcorder takes, And I'm basically using this light as a discharger. So I'm waiting until the light goes out, and then I'm putting the batteries onto the charger. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video about the Sony model DCR-VX1000. See you again soon.